No, I get 2 houses.
Okay.
It's crazy.
You leaving us, Dave?
I'm just looking for a pen.
I got a pen here, dude. I got an extra.
They used to supply pens.
Yeah. Probably people stole them.
Budget.
so they-
People were
Budget-
taking them
budget cut.
home and not returning them. No.
All right, I'm gonna call this meeting to order, May 16th, 2024. All of us are here except George. I did not hear from him, so I don't know what's up with George.
Are we still carrying Lee? I see him still on the
He is
list.
still on the
So
roster,
he's,
but
he's, yeah,
that's
he's not
one of the
here
things
yet.
we're gonna talk about, but let's do the Pledge of Allegiance first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We'll start with review of minutes. I have them attached to the agenda. I'll give you all a couple minutes to look over them.
Make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
I'm not through reading it.
I'll still second.
I get your comment, Eric. I'll take the E off.
Very common. I'm used to it, believe me, after all these years.
Any discussions? We have a first and a second, all in favor?
Who first did it?
That would be Eric.
Eric, okay.
Okay. Onward and upward.
We didn't vote.
Yeah, we did. I said all in favor, didn't we?
I don't think any of us actually raised our hands, but yes, I think I didn't hear anybody opposed.
All were in favor. Okay. Petitions, I just wanted to circle back to the petition. I got an email saying that we had out of all of our signatures, 94 of them were good.
Wow.
So we're good with that. And also, just for posterity's sake, I will say that Dave, his signatures, you came in with your 13.
Yep.
And we were good there. So now we're 94 and 13. So we're up there. We're good. We have plenty of signatures. And that brings me to the next thing on the agenda, which is that the select board is going to review that. And I spoke with Lindsay quite a bit about it. And I know that Dawn had said, well, let's get this through them in case they change the wording. I'm sorry, that was my phone. And Lindsay thinks it's too early
Too early.
to put this in front of them. She's thinking more like August.
In front of who?
In front of the select board.
So
What
you
if they
hold
wanna
the
change
hearings?
things?
What's that?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
You would hold the hearings before the select board?
We can hold hearings anytime, which that was my suggestion, is let the select board yay or nay, and then hold our hearings. She suggested that if she puts this on the agenda now, they're gonna be like, this isn't until November. So we just need to decide together, do we want to hold public hearings before this goes before the board or not? I don't have a feeling either way about it. Lindsay thinks it's too early, but again, we're holding back on our public meetings. We have to have our public hearings done. My understanding is October 25th. We have to have them done by.
Did Lindsay say why she thinks it's too early?
Just because the select board's got a lot going on and we got the June election here. And she thinks it should be later because we need to get beyond the June election. Because this is gonna be November election. So any discussion on that? Go ahead, Steve.
So if, say we give it to them in August, if they change anything, do we then have to go back and get 75
Yes.
more signatures?
Yes.
Oh,
See, this is putting us in.
Then that,
in a
and she's
bad
pushing us pretty
position.
way.
It is, and I said that, but she sees no reason why they would do that. She,
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I thought Don might have something to say about that. Her words, that we've done everything right, we've followed the procedure, it's gone through legal, it's gotten our town lawyer's stamp of approval, and there's no reason for the board to change it. That's her stance. And again, whatever you guys want to do, I'm okay with. I can go back to her and say, we're not comfortable with holding public hearings before the board yays or nays it. But either
I
way,
wouldn't feel comfortable having hearings and then
public hearings.
having to have them again and get signatures, because if you change it, you're gonna have to have them again, right?
Right.
No, I don't see why you'd have to have it again.
Well, you don't
You
want
held
to
a
change
public
on
hearing on
something.
something that isn't accurate. I wouldn't-
It's all, let's not forget, these are just suggestions.
Right.
That's all these are,
Right.
you know?
Proposals, for sure.
It's not, we're not making any decisions here. So the ultimate decision is in November.
Right.
I don't see why, the signatures, maybe you get in touch with the same people who signed your paper. I could see that, to let everybody know, maybe get some extra signatures. But to have another public hearing, I don't see the need.
What do you mean, have,
If we have a public hearing and then something gets changed, it looks like, you're trying to pull something, the public hearing is to give them the facts. This is.
and just to be clear, we have to have three. We have to have three, just so everybody's
Is
clear.
it,
Well, then we should
Spacing?
get two out of the way and then save one for any changes.
No, that makes sense. Good
Yeah,
suggestion.
but that doesn't, Dave, read the rules. You can't do that. If there is a change, you gotta start all over again. You gotta have a new petition, you gotta have and you gotta have 3 more public hearings. Read the charter. You should know because you helped write it.
I had a lot to do with that.
I understand
That
that.
was not the intent.
Well, it might not have been the
of that.
intent, but that's the way it's written. It's exactly how it's written.
I'm gonna push back on that, but.
Well, okay, I agree that it makes no sense, but that's what it says.
So let's just do it this way. The suggestion right now is that we have 2 and then wait for the third one until after the select board looks at it. So all those in favor of that?
That's what I do.
So who made the motion?
I'll make that motion.
And it is to have 2 hearings.
To have 2 hearings and save one for any changes.
And Buzzy seconded it. Any discussions on it?
Next meeting, we can have the discussion on whether or not we all agree that
does Lindsay feel
we're
they
following the
would
charter.
just not address it? Or they just are so busy, they wouldn't be touching it? I mean, what's to say in August, they're still not gonna be slammed with all this stuff?
No, I think it's just because there's an election in between.
Yeah, there's an issue because there's an election in June.
Oh,
And I can understand putting it off. I can understand putting it off until after the election, but I find a hard time putting it off until August.
I mean, we can definitely suggest that after the election has gone by in June, that, hey, can you put us on the agenda for the end of June?
Or the beginning.
Even the beginning of July, but August,
Either one. Is totally fine. I think that was just the shoot from the hip
Sure.
thing.
Okay.
That wasn't a solid thing, so, but right now, there's a motion and a second on the table.
Dave, you made the motion, Dave?
Yes.
Who seconded it?
Buzzy?
Buzzy.
Buzzy, okay.
So all those in favor of holding 2 public hearings and then waiting for the third public hearing until after it goes in front of the select board? Aye. So 4, 5, yep, 5,
5 yeses
yep.
to 1.
And what your,
I'm voting no.
and
I
Eric,
also voted.
Two vote no.
Eric
Okay,
voted no.
5-2.
Okay. Don?
I just want to make a comment. This will be interesting. I mean, the first time we've done this under the new charter.
Right.
And, I mean, Dave can probably, I can't see him, but anyway, can remember, help remember too. Same with you, Peggy. But, yeah, it's always come to mind, the way the process is written in 3-15-3, proposals for new modifications or revocations of ordinances. It gives you the three ways to do it: select board, planning board, ordinance review committee, and then it has citizens initiative as a fourth way. But it doesn't address the fact that you go through the process and then what happens, it doesn't really address the fact that the select board has final say on what goes on the warrant articles in November. It doesn't address that in the charter. Earlier, I guess there may be some wording about the select board's responsibilities, et cetera. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, these are 4 items which personally, only one of them is maybe controversial. That could be the contract zoning one, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but, this would be interesting to see how it plays. But if the ordinance review committee does its due diligence, gets all its signatures, and then the select board either scratches one or modifies the wording significantly, that's a breach of trust, in my opinion. Maybe not. But,
Well,
I'm not talking for the select board because obviously I'm not on it, but it just seems like it'll throw the whole thing into a mishmash.
It's funny we're having this conversation.
I'm sorry?
It's funny that you and I are having this conversation.
Yeah.
Because of the back and forth that we had for several months.
Oh, you mean on the wording in here?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what it doesn't address is what I wanted to address in the charter,
Yeah.
that we discussed about, keeping it vague for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything in the charter about what we were talking about the having to have extra
Redo the
public hearings. It doesn't say that. So I think 2 and 1, we're in good shape. There is nothing holding our feet to the fire on that. And that was by design.
Well, I think it's, you're following what the charter says, but the only point I wanted to make was, which I hope it doesn't come to pass, is that if the select board in its wisdom decides not to put them on the ballot, then you're back into a frustration situation where the only obviously answer is to try to recall somebody, but that's a long process.
Well, keeping in mind too, that, 3 of them, LD 2003, and Shoreland LD 2003 and FEMA, they are mandated. Obviously, not all the changes in the ADU ordinance are mandated.
Right.
However, we have to change at least a little bit of that ordinance. And I think they recognize that. And like Lindsay said, we followed procedure, we've done everything right. There's no real reason for them to say no or change the wording, especially going against the advice of the town lawyer.
Yeah, good point.
So that's her stance. And I have to agree with it. I don't see any reason why the board would do that to us. But again, it is stepping out on it's a chance, it's throwing the dice.
Well, you also will have new members of the board, probably. You will.
That is
because,
true.
right, aren't there 2 openings?
There's 2 seats.
And then, may or may not be whoever runs again.
Right. So that's what we're gonna do.
So again, to clarify, the charter is not stopping us from making that decision.
Correct,
No, I agree with it. I agree with it on that. I'm just,
yes.
Does
it'd
it,
be interesting to watch this one, that's all.
and I didn't read it, but does it say that the select board does the final decision?
It does
It does say that, okay.
go down for.
Under responsibility.
I guess that's just one of my questions. It's the select board's warrant, we all understand that.
Yeah.
Right.
So that they can say yes or no, it goes on the warrant. Do they have the ability to change what we presented?
They do.
Yep.
They do.
Which would throw it in a tizzy.
Right, so if
That
they-
late.
So if they made a simple change as much as
A
leaving the words owner occupied in accessory dwelling unit.
That's a change.
You're saying we don't have to come back to public hearings and petitions.
No, I'm saying we'll have one public hearing. We will do two.
But once you have to get 75 more.
There's not, what I'm a little surprised, yes, because that's what we talked about.
Okay.
When we were at the charter, that was the intent, to go and further, broaden our horizon to
Right.
not talk people into it, but to show them what changes are coming. That's all. Let them make up their own mind.
That's why I'd be surprised that the select board would change it if it's really up to the people.
Yeah. And
I
I
mean,
know.
that's the reason for doing all this, is to present it to the citizens of Lyman to agree or disagree on this, so.
And I honestly don't see that happening. Of course, it could, like he said, we're gonna have 2 new selectmen by that time. It could happen, of
But-
course, but why would it?
But there's also other things that this committee can do. We can put into motion timeframes that we need.
Yep.
And submit them to the town manager, That time frame doesn't work for us, because it's too easy to implode. So I know they're busy, but we're only talking 3 of them, but 4 of them, whatever it is, the changes, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So, yeah, we've voted on that. We voted we're gonna do 2 and then do 1 after it goes through select board. We don't have to make the decision tonight. Obviously, we've got plenty of time of when we're gonna do those. That'll give me some time between now and the next meeting to just talk to Lindsay, see if I can firm up a time frame of when she's gonna put this on the agenda for the board. And maybe that will help us along a little bit. And we'll look at it again next meeting.
Are you seeing something else, Dave?
Well, I read the charter, I know what it says, I mean, it's gonna be subject to a legal opinion.
Right, I got it right here.
Yeah, I know.
Yes,
Before we go on too much further, can we back up to old business? We skipped over that real quick and I didn't catch it.
which old business?
We talked about 100 square foot building.
Oh,
Yes,
that's, yes, but, yeah.
That's
Well,
under old business.
it is. It's not on the agenda though, but we can bring that back down and there's something.
Before we get into the gravel pit, it's gonna take a while.
Actually, that's not gonna take a while.
No?
So hold on 1 second, hold that thought, Buzz, and we'll circle back to that.
At my age, it must be-
Let's see, 2 meetings.
I know what you mean, Buzzy. I know what you mean.
Okay. Gravel pits. We kind of went down a rabbit hole last time on gravel pits. And if everybody looks at page 65, in the zoning ordinance.
The zoning?
Yep. Really, the only issue that we were discussing at that point was whether or not the money that is held by gravel pits can or should go into an interest-bearing account. We all decided yes. I changed the wording, remember? And I did change it. I went back and looked on our working draft, make sure that's changed. But somehow that got into how much money is actually being escrowed. So Eric did a little work for us and did some research. He found some stuff from the state of Maine as far as it goes for gravel pits. And as we discussed at the last meeting, if you have more than 5 acres open, or if you're gonna dig below the water table, you have to go to the state has to give you the permit, and they require a bond as well. So, but that was kind of going down a rabbit hole. So that kind of forced me to go back and really look at this Article 11 for mineral extraction. And honestly, this whole ordinance really needs to be looked at. It's not just how much money. And I reached out and spoke with Lindsay about it again as well. And her suggestion is just this, that just let's not worry about the escrow right now, how much is escrowed or how much we are basically saying reclamation is gonna cost us. Just leave it be for now, and when we get to reviewing the whole ordinance, when we go back and start at page 1 and are going through the ordinance and we get to Article 11, let SMPDC weigh in and see what their thoughts and views are and so on and so forth, instead of trying to work backwards. Because really the only thing we were looking at was number 4 in that section. And we took care of it, so I think we should just table the gravel pit escrows until we go back and really start at the beginning of that ordinance, Article 11, and go through it bit by bit. So let's just table that and move on with that.
Maybe it would be better if Lindsay attended the meetings. That would be helpful and save us a lot of time.
Yes, for sure, I agree with that. Of course, she's got a lot on her plate, and if there is something that I think she should be attending and we need her help with, I'll definitely reach out to her, and I'm sure she would. So that's it for old business.
Yeah, just as an
Oh,
aside,
yeah.
the last thing that you want to put in an ordinance is fees. Those should be set separately, because every time you change the fee, you got to change the ordinance. So
Yes.
in my opinion, it says exactly what it should say. It's set by the select board.
Yes.
If they want to change it, they can change it.
Yes,
If you put $5,000 in there, 10 years from now, you're gonna have to make it 6
Yeah.
or 8 or 10. So I
Don?
think it's fine the way it is.
I think maybe Joe wants to speak to this. The planning board's been doing some work on, did we do, remember we were working on the wording for that, oh, that was for, oh, I'm sorry, that was for subdivision, wasn't it? Yeah, okay, yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you have something, Buzz?
Yeah.
Did you want to say something about that? Anybody else on the gravel pit issue?
Yeah, but that covered the,
No?
We have several pits that are more than 10 acres, 5 acres.
Yeah, well,
Not that are open, and if they are, they're illegal.
Well,
Well, except for Dayton, who has a state permit.
Les Layton came to the planning board and they approved him to go bigger.
I don't think so. I was on the board when he got it, when he had to close some to get 5 more.
And he got permits to go below water.
I don't dispute that, but I know he didn't get a permit to go bigger unless he went to the state.
I'm gonna call point of order here because we really don't need to be talking about gravel pits and their escrows right now. Oh, Joe, did you have something though?
Just, are you going with the proposed change to make it a sharing escrow account?
Yes.
Stands right now.
Correct.
Which is not-
Yeah, we voted
That's
that
the
last
wording.
week.
We voted that the last time, and
Okay.
it, we just added the word, the funds are to be placed in an interest-bearing escrow account.
That we're not going to affect until it's approved by the.
Correct.
Yeah.
2026, really.
Got it?
Yep. So yeah, that's gonna take care of gravel pits for now. We'll move on from that. But Buzzy had one thing that he wanted to circle back from old business, which was, go ahead.
Okay. We talked last meeting about a 10 by 10 shed, 100 square feet. And there was no action taken on it.
Correct.
And I think we should take some action on it. And my thought is, if we have somebody who wants a 10 by 10 shed, they should be able to build it. And if they have an ADU, they should be able to build 2 of them.
Well, that's.
I mean, we're gonna allow an ADU, let's allow the second shed for the person in the ADU.
So let me just clarify. We discussed that issue, the 10 by 10 shed, because it was suggested by a town employee
Yeah,
that we try to lighten the load of our code enforcement office. And right now, if you're gonna put a chicken coop on your land, you have to have a building permit.
I had a code enforcement officer at my house when I first moved up here over a doghouse.
Right, so that was the point in doing that, and nobody, when asked, do we want to consider some kind of exemption for the building permit section? Nobody wanted to take any action. Is that, I don't want to
Yeah,
speak for everybody again.
just to make it, there is no limit to how many sheds you can have on your property.
Yeah.
The only limit is you can't cover more than 20% of your property. So you can have 10 sheds if you want.
No, he's talking about not having to get a permit.
Well, that's what I want to make sure. This is what you're talking about, to get any number of sheds without a permit.
But there's a limit to how many buildings you can put on.
No, there isn't.
There isn't.
There is no limit. We took that out last time. It was changed.
Okay, you took that out?
Yes, it's
You
been
just
taken
can't
out.
cover more than 20%.
Okay.
Yeah, lot coverage covers it.
Yeah. So we'll move on from that. Let's see back here to my,
But I think what Buzzy was asking is, under a certain size, do you really have to get a permit?
is that what you were asking?
Yeah,
So
under
you,
a certain size, you still have to get a permit.
yes,
I'm saying 100 by 100, we shouldn't have to have a permit.
10 by 10,
A 10 by, well,
not 100 by 100.
what, but,
About
100 square feet,
that.
we shouldn't have to get a permit.
That is kind of
Yeah,
small.
Right, and that's what I was saying, was
And you
that
could go,
we all discussed that at the last meeting and nobody wanted to take action. But if you want to open that up for discussion again, if somebody does feel that that's, that, you know, I personally think that I would love to help our code enforcement office in any way we can to try to lighten their load a little bit. But it didn't seem at that time that anybody
I
wanted to
think
take
that's an
action on
excellent
that.
idea. I think.
yeah.
100
The
100
issue
square
is,
feet's a little small.
how are you going to assure that they meet setbacks and other things if you don't require a permit? You leave it up to the neighbor to complain?
Yep, pretty much. Pretty much.
pretty much.
Mhm.
If you got a neighbor that says, hey, you didn't meet your setback, then the code enforcement officer can go look and
Have
see.
you ever tried to
gotta
have
work
that
your
done, Buzzy?
It happens all the time.
To an existing
Yes,
building?
I have. I had
You
a,
got them to move it?
I had a septic system going in there.
Septic is different,
Isn't
And
10 off
the
the
code
wall?
enforcement officer
How
said
about
it
a
was
12 by
legal
16?
until I called the
but you
state.
got a permit.
When I called the state, it was a different story.
All right, so
What's the
Matt.
potential revenue loss to the town?
that's a good
Revenue loss?
question.
What do you mean by revenue loss?
If you don't have to
Seems
get a
like it might
permit?
be a game.
If you're not getting a building
It
permit
it
for
could be a
every change-
gain based on man hours.
Yeah.
I get where you're going there, but I just think of that as well.
Well, this is what I know.
And I don't know the answer to the question.
I don't know
asking.
that either, and I can
It's a
find
good
that
question.
out. But again, this was brought up because the CEO office is drowning right now.
Isn't it a $40 permit?
It's about $40. There's two major reasons to get permits. Number one is so that the tax collector knows that you're building something. And number two, that you meet all your requirements, setbacks, lot coverage, et cetera.
But if
Those
you're
are the
not
two
taxed
things.
on
If
the
you don't have a permit, then there's no way of checking that.
Not getting taxed, but they're also not paying the $40 for a building permit. And now it's gonna take the code enforcement officer their time because the neighbor is gonna complain that they didn't meet setbacks
That's true. That's true.
because it wasn't regulated at the beginning.
I just think we should do it.
Any further discussion on that?
I think we should carefully consider the size. I think that's too small, but, I mean, we just regulate everything. You gotta get a permit for
How about this?
anything.
Let me put it this way. If you have a temporary building, you can set it on your boundary line.
No, you can't. Oh, it's temporary.
Yeah, temporary
If
building,
it's-
you can set it on the
Well,
boundary line.
If it's a building, it's not temporary. If it's
On
temporary,
Blocks.
If it's like-
It is.
if it's a tent, you can do it. If it's a
Movable.
Connex box, you can do it, but that's not a building.
But if you set it on cement blocks, that's a movable temporary building.
So this is my suggestion, that it seems as though some people are in favor of some kind of exemption of certain size buildings for building permits and some are not. So why don't we do just as, I will check into it as Matt suggests. I could probably find out in short order, how many of these permits are we actually writing?
Or
You know,
And is that a concern? If that revenue is not there, is that a concern to Lindsay or Jeanette? And if it's not a concern to them, then it's.
And
Right.
we're probably not writing that many permits because nobody's coming to get one. I mean, I got an 8x10, and when I asked about a permit 40 some odd years ago, it wasn't required. And now all of a sudden, it's required for a small shed. That's not.
I put one up
That's
40
not a
years
small
ago and
house.
I had to have a permit, so I don't know how come you didn't.
Huh?
I had one 40 years ago, I put one in and I needed a permit,
I
so,
put mine in 47 years.
yeah, 40, okay.
Okay, we'll
And
do that.
permits weren't required.
We
I
will table
find that hard to
that.
believe.
While I was not much into the
Yeah.
time.
Oh, well, that could be the explanation.
So we'll table that, and we're gonna move on from that right now, and, we will circle back at the next meeting on it. Now we're gonna move on to some new business.
So we tabled that?
We tabled that, yep. I'll get some questions answered and we'll circle back at the next meeting. On to new business. I just wanted to talk briefly about our terms. We have 5 people whose terms are up at the end of June. It is myself, Dave Dulong, Lee, George Cheney, and Dawn. Dawn, we know, is not coming back. But the only reason I'm putting that out there is because I want everybody to know, in case nobody knows when their term's up, we all have staggering terms.
John's not coming back as liaison?
Correct.
But I'm not gonna be on a planning board.
He's done in June.
Thank you.
Yes,
Sorry about that.
We have staggering terms.
yes, we all
Yeah,
have staggering
That's required,
terms.
yeah.
Yep.
Some are,
Don't
this
they
year,
all
next
just
year.
get reappointed at the beginning of the new term for?
but in the past, it used to be like that, but I don't know what's gonna be. We need to ask Lindsay exactly what she wants.
I have spoken with Lindsay about that. And if you want to remain on the committee, you don't have to go through the application process again. It can be something as simple as sending her an email saying, I want to remain on the committee. It's obviously not her choice. It is up to the board.
Yeah,
They appoint or not.
okay.
So just send her an email and say, I want to remain on the committee. And then whenever the board is looking at appointing,
That's usually the
Committees.
first selectmen's meeting.
Yes,
after the
because
election.
right,
That's all
July
the
is
appointments
when,
are done at that.
right, at our
See why they're
first
overwhelmed.
meeting in
All
July.
these little things.
What's that?
I said, I can see how they can become overwhelmed doing a lot of these little things.
Right,
that they shouldn't
exactly,
even have to worry about.
exactly.
These are
So,
volunteer boards.
Right, and if you want to reapply,
on Thursdays?
just go out and see Lindsay or talk to her, email her, call her, whatever, and then we'll go from there after we know who's been appointed, who reapplied, and who didn't. We'll have to have an election of officers, first meeting in July, and, you know, we do, obviously, I don't know how many people will be here, so.
One other question.
Sure, Dawn.
Do you have to, I'm not sure if the bylaw is required, do you have to review your bylaws too, or not? I know the planning board does, that may be in the bylaws, in the planning board's bylaws, but I'm not trying to delay your meeting, I'm just saying, I will look at that and see if it requires, because I know the planning board looks at mission statement, bylaws, and elects officers in the first, typically the first meeting in July.
Yes.
Common.
Yeah, good thinking.
So anyway.
Good tip. Thank you for saying so. All right, let me write that, 1 second. Okay. Now, I have a couple other things. Review of Article 8, Section 8.3.1, so if we can go to page 33.
Of the zone?
Yep, of the zoning ordinance. Staff Review Committee.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So here's the thing, guys, we don't have one. So it has been suggested that we remove it entirely,
We don't have what?
a staff review committee.
Why don't we have one?
Because it's all handled by the planning board.
What's that?
It's handled by the planning board.
Well, I went through a staff review, about 2 years ago.
Matt,
So
when
they
was the
had
last
one
time
then.
you were at a staff review meeting?
I've been to one, I've been the fire chief for 4.5 years. I want to say it was probably 4 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, you went to one of my house,
Um,
the daycare.
John Tibbetts was the fire commissioner and the select board on that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the staff review committee says who they are. They're here.
If, I know that. But it's not used, plain and simple. It is code enforcement officer, road commissioner, assessor, fire department officer, and one member of the board of selectmen. And if we've had one in 4 years, what is the purpose of having it?
The purpose of having it is to save a lot of time and energy for a small business that wants to get something done. That's exactly what the reason for it is.
Instead of going through the whole
I
process.
think,
John?
We did, just going down that road a little bit, since there was no staff review committee, the planning board ended up reviewing, the conditions of a road and, you know, in front of the planning board, and had there been an active staff review committee, it would appear to me that they could have taken care of that.
Mhm.
And that was the first time I remember the, planning board getting involved in that particular type of activity on roads.
and it saves the small business. And did they charge them the $500 for the,
I don't know.
because I know the staff review was, I don't think they even charged for the staff review.
I don't know.
It's really beneficial to a small business who wants to have especially a home
If it's not
business.
a daycare, they go through a staff review.
That's what I'm saying, but if we do away with the staff review, they'll have to go to the planning board.
Yeah.
They'll pay $500, they'll have to do,
And it puts more work on the planning board,
it puts more work on the
Of course,
planning board,
yes,
and it puts a
absolutely.
burden on the small business.
Yeah,
right, of waiting and spending the money.
it puts a bigger cost on the small business.
I mean, I wanted to build on my land and I was going to do that, but the costs and there's no guarantee. You can pay this money and try, but I
Yeah,
said, well, that doesn't make
Well,
sense.
as long as you meet the requirements, there should be no issue.
Well, I don't. That's what I mean. I have 9.5 acres.
You got-
So I wanted to build my retirement home on part of it. And
But you can now, it's an ADU.
yeah.
yeah, if I
Is
never
there-
sell the other property.
Oh, that's right, you can't.
Right.
Is there a clear, well-known process of how a resident can request a staff review committee versus planning board? Where they just come to the planning board and you tell them,
Now, they would go typically, I would suggest, to the code. enforcement
That's how it
officer.
happened. We went to the code enforcement officer, and the code enforcement officer said it's a lot easier and cheaper to go to the staff review. And since it's a small business and that's what happened.
Well, I could just point out that there's been a bit of a turnover in code enforcement officers in the last few years, a little bit, and the staff review committee sort of fell out of use. And I'm not saying it's not useful, but it hasn't been around, so I don't know if there's much way to evaluate the value of it. It hasn't been active.
Yeah.
Could it become active? I assume.
Yeah, if we take it out, it'll never become active again. If we leave it there, it may or may not be used. I see no reason to take it out.
Joe?
Just a little technicality, take a look at the bottom page 33.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
There's
Yeah,
reference to
I
section
noticed.
seven.
that's not there.
That's right.
Yeah, letter
Bottom
C.
page as well.
At the bottom of the page, it says staff review committee shall approve or approve
Yeah.
of conditions on application for site plan review for the use listed in sections 8.9.1 and 1 to, there's no section 8.9.1.
And further,
Yep,
8.4.
Yep.
B, 8.4C.
yeah,
That needs
so,
updating, yeah.
yeah, there's no
There's a lot
such
of it.
creature. So clearly this has to be rewritten as well. That's just another thing that
Is this something we should wait until we go
When-
page by page?
when we
and-
start back at the beginning of
Yeah.
at the beginning. So as far as staff review committee, I can ask Lindsay if that's, I mean, she's the one that recommended that we do away with staff review committee. But I don't have a feeling either way about this. If it's ineffective, I don't see why we would rewrite the whole ordinance. That's the only thing that I care about, really. I don't want to do all that work if it's not something that we're ever going to use. If it's been 4 years and you've done one, I don't know. But
But why is it
Yeah, that's-
not been done? Has it not been recommended to people? Because the ordinary person probably doesn't know of this process. So maybe we're doing a disservice to the people by, first of all, removing it, but not having it presented to them that, hey, there's a cheaper way to go.
Either way.
So maybe,
And I'm surprised Patty wouldn't have done something like that.
Well, Patty
Actually,
did.
I
See,
understood
Patty's
that
not
Patty
here.
did.
What happened is the newer, after Patty, that they weren't familiar with it evidently,
Yeah,
and they just didn't know,
yeah.
and, you know, Patty knew about it, so.
And my understanding was that Patty was party to that and
Yeah, she was on it.
sometimes
Well, there has to be a criteria somewhere that distinguish whether it has to go to the planning board or the review.
And there isn't.
Well, there obviously was, but
And maybe-
somebody left
maybe
it out of
that's
it,
the
so.
thing that we work.
And
Yeah.
your material that says this would be a staff review and this would be a planning board?
Yeah, I honestly think it's just up to the CEO. And the CEO is.
No, I don't believe that, but.
Yeah, I don't think you can.
Yeah, if it's a small business, you should.
Well, it gives you some of the guidelines here.
Well, I mean, not that
Not a lot.
she's the judge and jury on it. My point in saying that was that the CEO would be the one to say, yes, you've got to go to planning board, or you can do staff review.
Yeah.
You know, she's not the one that says, yes, you can have this or do this or not. She's just the one that would recommend that. Is what
That's
I,
way to go, yeah.
right.
Well, I mean, it lists in the ordinance here, what, it says,
The criteria, right?
yeah, in part A311B on page 33, it, lists the following types of applications, so it does give some information in the ordinance. So, but it hasn't been used lately, I mean, that's not to say it couldn't be, but it hadn't been.
So really, I think it just, like Dave said, there needs to be a criteria that says, if you meet this, you can go to staff review.
It does.
Yeah, at least we've got to fill in item C.
Yes,
Well, yeah, it's gotta be fixed,
right.
you know.
So that whole ordinance, even if, whether it stays or goes, I mean, if it goes, we don't have to do anything, but if it stays, we definitely have to rewrite that ordinance. So I'm just gonna say that we table that for now, and I'm gonna make a note that, no action was taken on removing it. Okay, now. If we could go to page 22, section 7.2.1. Okay. If you all, I don't know who has heard or who has not heard, we now have a CEO. Rebecca has been appointed our CEO now. And obviously that office is flooded. A lot of these suggestions that are coming through are because of our CEO's office, and our CEO's office is really overwhelmed. And they're just looking at ways to try to alleviate some of the pressure on that office. I think that office could easily sustain 2 full-time employees, whether it's a full-time CEO and a full-time admin. Either way, but they're really overwhelmed. And they're looking for any way they can to relieve that. So it was suggested that they're having a hard time dealing with just walk-in traffic and keeping up with issuing permits and all that. So letter C says that they have 14 days. Within 14 days of the filing of the application for a building permit, the code enforcement officer shall approve or deny the application. And it has been suggested that they need more time for that. I looked at other towns. It can be 3 weeks. It can be 4 weeks. Most towns have more time, I will say that. Obviously, they are bigger towns that I looked at, but that's really neither here nor there. So I am open to making that longer. in an effort to help them out.
Well, if I may.
Please.
I think right now we should recommend to the town manager and the board to do, if it's an emergency ordinance or whatever, but to extend that time to alleviate what they're going through.
Yes,
They can do a 90-day ordinance,
yes.
an emergency ordinance.
Yeah.
And that should alleviate at least the fact of people now going, hey, it's been 2 weeks, let me do what I gotta do, because you all know that, you know, the backlash of that is when it does get inspected or whatever, there's gonna be an issue. Or there could be an issue.
Right.
So I think we should suggest that.
Yeah, okay.
Almost 30 days in every town in Massachusetts, minimum of 30 days.
Yeah.
Did you have something, Matt?
Yeah, my only question would be, is there a way to remove the time limit from the ordinance and put a time limit in some other policy or regulation that can be adjusted easier than ordinances? Because a 90-day emergency ordinance is great, then that expires, and now we're talking 2026 before this gets fixed.
Before it gets fixed, right. You know, we talked about that, and this is another thing that we're gonna talk about. One other thing that didn't make it on the agenda, but emergency ordinances.
If I may, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's not broken. The work can be done. It's just that they're so far behind right now that it's impossible to.
Yeah, we never had a problem in the past.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it can be done. So it's not broke. So it's not like if we did miss it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
normally, yeah.
we just need to buy them enough time
To get it cleaned
to get
up.
acquainted, to get it cleaned up and then move forward.
I'm not, that's not my understanding. My understanding is that they're overwhelmed.
Absolutely.
Not just because of backlog, but because of the amount of permits and traffic that's coming in. I mean, think about it, something as simple as, we discussed it at one other meeting, a noise ordinance. We're not gonna send our CEO out there to take care of a noise ordinance. It was suggested that we remove the noise ordinance, but everybody kind of felt that it was important to have that there. That's what we have to deal with in our CEO office. Those people coming in and saying, my neighbor's being noisy, da, 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 on top of all the other stuff. And that is my impression from hearing from that office, is that that's what they're overwhelmed with. The people coming in, it's not just about the permits and, you know, septic and all that. It's the road traffic coming in.
But they've been one down now for how long? Let's give them a chance. Maybe they'll catch back up.
There is a backlog, but that was not the suggestion, that's not why they're suggesting that. They're saying that
Well,
the amount of work regularly.
We can do it in tandem.
Right, I would agree.
I would go to natural growth on that one, in my opinion. I think your comment earlier about 2 full-time employees adding personnel to that department, I don't think a system is broken. I think the system has outgrown our town staff,
I have 100%.
and I think we need to, I mean, the same thing's happening over at the fire department, and we're trying to deal with it as well.
Absolutely.
But I think the town employees need to grow. I
Yes.
think
Don?
more.
I just said, if you want to put some weasel words in, you could put an option in there where the time is approved by the select board or some wording like that that doesn't specify an
Yeah.
exact time.
Oh, you might be able to put a range even and put it dependent on.
Yeah, I mean, up to,
Is this-
maybe some wording in another town's ordinance that would fit.
I'm willing to bet
I don't
there's statute somewhere,
Yeah.
you know.
I
I
know.
remember there's people waiting to build a
Right.
house too.
Yeah, that's right.
There's.
Yeah, or a shed
To
too.
extend that time is extending people's lives.
Well,
You know,
I do agree with that, but 14 days is a short
Very
amount of time.
It ain't really-
We've never had a problem with
If you
that.
have 50
But
of
that
them,
was
you need
then.
to do or something.
And this is now.
And they've been
We've
at
outgrown
50%
that.
staffed for the last 3 months.
We have, but they're not talking.
I don't
about
think this is
backlog.
time for a
They're talking-
knee-jerk reaction.
they're- Hold
For
on,
a
point of order.
qualified CEO, that's a lot of time. Right now, they're gonna have to get themselves in gear if they want the job and step up and do the job the way a CEO does it. If not, if they're not gonna be qualified, then we need to get a qualified CEO. But 14 days has never been an issue for any of our CEOs.
And I just want to speak to that for 1 minute, though. We're in a different time. The amount of permits that we're going through right now is exponentially more than we have in the past. And the amount of traffic that goes in and out of the office now. I'm in that office a lot myself,
Every spring,
and there's constant traffic in there.
but that's
So-
every spring. It's
I-
nothing new.
I think that we need to just either say yay or nay, or how much time? Did you?
Can I speak on that?
You
Could you identify yourself?
Sure, Bob Jerry, 86 Duplain.
Okay.
14 days is an incredible amount of time to try to turn. The system in place now is antiquated. Considering how many new codes there are to apply to a timeframe like that in the volume with one person doing it, you should try it.
Well,
Well,
14
yeah,
days,
remember-
14 days is
oh,
we may have been
Hold
good
on.
in the
we can
past.
give her, we can ask the selectmen to give her 90 days to get caught up. And have them extended for 90 days.
But then you're right back in the same.
But we've never had a problem with it
But
before.
like you said, the sheer volume now, that's like
Right,
saying,
right.
you had 20
Okay,
years ago
point of
works
order.
well.
Just point of order here. Go ahead, Dave.
So I'm gonna try this. I'll make a motion that we increase the 2-week time to 30 days. On a sidebar, I think we should recommend that the board do a 90-day extension
Yeah.
for the 30 days.
Mhm.
That's my motion.
Right, because this won't even take effect till next year sometime, right?
2026.
I'll
Yeah,
second
so
Dave's motion.
That's a long way.
So seconded, we have a first and a second. Any more discussion on that? All in favor?
Wait. Restate the motion one more time.
You would say that.
I want to get it right.
The same.
Extended to 30 days.
Yep. 2 weeks to 30 days.
For 90 days?
No, forever, to put on the ballot.
Yep.
And recommend that the board have an emergency ordinance to 30 days for the 90-day term.
Yes,
Can they do more than one?
yes, they can.
I just was asking for my own knowledge, because that may be a short-term, solution. And I know there's legal and probably insurance things. Why not ask for volunteers to
My-
help out? There's things that people can do that,
Because I'm sure that's an employee thing.
well, that's what I mean.
Right.
But if you can get them under insurance and stuff, you want to save time. I mean, it's an area I worked in most of my life, so I could help out.
Right.
How many permits are requested?
I'm looking for money, doing it for
I
free.
don't think it's a weekly thing. I think they go by quarter. And I think the first
That'd be good information.
quarter, oh God, you can't quote me on these numbers, but I want to say the first quarter we had 175, just in the first 3 months. But again, don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure I asked that question pointedly. So we have a first and a second of the extension to 30 days and asking the select board to do an emergency
And
ordinance.
one more thing. Just because we're looking to extend it, it doesn't mean it's gonna take that amount of time.
Give
But
them
it,
that.
but it gives them the
The leeway.
leeway of not having a panic and watch these 2 weeks where, people are gonna have the right to move forward.
And I just want to add too that I am in favor of this, and why I'm in favor of it is because I do know that the code office, yes, we have a new code enforcement officer. She's learning, it's OJT, but there's like 6 towns right now looking for code enforcement officers. And, we're doing the best we can. Our employees are doing the best they can. And another reason is that our town is right on the edge of adopting a new energy code. we would, if we have to adopt an energy code, it's gonna be even worse in that office. And it's a number. You're supposed to, the state has a number. After your population, I think it's 4,700 people, you're supposed to adopt the energy code. And we are dangerously close to that. And that is a game changer, because building permits require so much more, and the CEOs, there's just gonna be so much more for that office. So again, I'm in favor of that, and we have the first and the second. So all in favor of that motion? Okay, so.
Opposed? No?
Buzzy's opposed. Everybody else in favor?
You must have known that.
Just to add real quick.
I don't mean to
Sure.
friend.
Matt?
Did you say that looking at other towns, longer than 14 days is industry standard?
Yes, it really is. 3 and 4 weeks is what I found for most.
Which
So,
definitely falls.
Yeah, it'd be good, and just my opinion.
Yeah.
It'd be good to have some information to make these decisions on.
absolutely.
It's hard to sit here and not look at, like you said, they've had this many permits. Well, is that normal? Or like you said, it's spring, is that normal?
It's spring, it's normal.
No,
for the spring.
we don't know that. We're just being told it's not.
We always have a big
We
influx.
should have that in front of us if we're gonna make changes that are gonna affect the town going forward, and not having the data makes it hard to decide whether you're doing the right thing or not.
And
Would the CEO actually tell someone, someone comes in, they simply want to build a playhouse, a shed or something. I need a couple of weeks to write the permit, but you can go ahead and do that. Just bear in mind, you need to know the setbacks and everything else, because you are putting someone's life on hold. And the other thing, Dave, as you know, there's certain times a year when all of a sudden, you want that concrete in the ground. You don't want to be waiting 30 days.
that's right,
to
especially
put
if you're
that
in
in.
November.
So, you just got to be careful, because if you give someone 30 days, they'll take 30 days. And I know things have changed in the town, but historically, there's literally times that I had called Patty and she said, Stephen, just come by tomorrow, come by in the afternoon. So it's always been a quick thing, but to wait 30 days for simply a shed or something. There's got to be some sense of, telling someone, go ahead and start, just bear in mind, you've got to be mindful of your setbacks and everything else, and not put them in a situation where if they start, you're going to fine them. We got to have some common sense when we're dealing with this.
Just one more thing on this before we move on, and it's to Eric's point of having some more information on these topics that we discussed. I do agree with that, but I think that we really need to, something like this is a new topic that's come up. I think we just need to get in and hash it out and figure out what information we actually need. If it's, we need to get our CEO in here, or we need to get our town manager in here, or we need somebody from SMPDC to weigh in on a gravel pit, I think that's a good idea, but we have to collect our own information. Believe it or not, I have another job, which is, I spend a lot of time on this, a lot of time. And I can't possibly do all this research ahead of time to have that. So this is why we had discussed maybe 4 meetings ago, reaching out to the staff and seeing what we got back and what things they wanted to change. That's what we're doing right now. We're still in that process. So when I table something, we're gonna circle back to it. It just might come in sequential order from when we go back to the beginning of the page.
I do understand that, but I also understand we just voted on something where we didn't have information. We believe that they're busier than they have been, but we don't have the facts
Well,
behind that.
the fact of the matter is they're asking for help.
Right.
And we're
Right.
trying to give them.
90 day, right? I agree, I agree.
Right.
that's all I'm saying is to sit here and make these decisions without the facts.
Mhm.
For me anyways, it's difficult.
Yeah, and I agree with Eric.
We're just going on a whim
Well,
and saying, let's do this.
Yeah.
we also could recommend to take it off,
Right?
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
you know?
we have to go back. I don't, yeah, please. We have to go back to the beginning. So, in writing Article 7, it could come to pass that, hey, let's call in Rebecca. She's had some time now. She's got some time here under her belt. By the time we get to Article 7, it could totally be that it changes again and we re-vote on that. But
Okay. Well, that's
for
okay.
right now.
Yep.
So, the last thing on that's not on the agenda actually that came to me after I sent the agenda out was one of our articles, Article 4, our floodplain. I didn't copy you guys on this because again, this came out at the end. There is one blank. This floodplain ordinance came directly from the Department of Ag. And they basically said, here you go, this is what we suggest y'all do in Lyman. And they sent the ordinance. Lee J. Feldman, as we all remember, recommended that we adopt this as is. What I did not realize was that in section 4, they're talking about fees. And I didn't copy this all on this, but it's talking about the application fee. So the question now is, do we want to come up with that fee, or do we just go, select board, let you take care of the fee?
We shouldn't be putting fees in an ordinance that we're gonna change in the future,
What is the fee for?
as set by the select board.
Application fee.
For the application.
It's for the application.
What does it say?
It says, I'm gonna read it to you, a non-refundable,
What page are you on, please? Are you on
this is
short?
on the flood.
Oh, the flood.
That's the
On the
floodplain
flood.
thing, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it says a non-refundable application fee of blank shall be paid to the town clerk, and a copy of a receipt for the same shall accompany the application. An additional fee may be charged if the code enforcement officer, planning board, and/or board of appeals needs the assistance of a professional engineer or other expert. The expert's fee shall be paid in full by the applicant within 10 days after the town submits a bill to the applicant. Failure to pay the bill shall constitute a violation of the ordinance and be grounds for the issuance of a stop work order. An expert shall not be hired by the municipality at the expense of an applicant until the applicant has either consented to such hiring in writing or been given an opportunity to be heard on the subject. An applicant who is dissatisfied with the decision to hire expert assistance may appeal that decision to the Board of Appeals. So Lindsay did not have a feeling either way about this, but it was just kind of like, oh, it says in our instructions that we need to make sure the blanks are filled in. That is the only blank in this flood ordinance. And Lindsay was suggestive that just let the board set the fee. And I agree with that implicitly, but I told her I would run it by everybody to make sure that they were okay with that. And it's not our baby, really, I don't feel.
The board should set a fee. If we put it in here, like Dave said, if we want to change the fee, we gotta change the whole ordinance.
So I think that we'll just let that happen. She is on the Monday, this coming Monday select board meeting. They are gonna talk about this flood
Yeah.
ordinance. So they'll probably do, what's that, Don?
I hate to bring this loud, but, I went back to signatures, everybody collected signatures based on the wording of the article. So it talked about putting in this ordinance, the flood, that's one of the 4, right? That we voted to put in, right? Or the people
It
will
is.
vote on
You're a
it.
troublemaker, Don.
No, but I'm just saying that, I think it would just be a question with a lawyer or something, is it able to, add that fee afterwards? You know what I'm saying? It was not, in the wording, if you want to go look, what I'm saying is,
The fee is in the
Only two
wording,
things-
just
two
the
things.
amount
The amount is
Based
not.
Based on the conversation at the beginning of the meeting, there's a feeling out there that if there's a minor change or a change to what we presented, we don't have to go back through public hearings and stuff again. And the second thing is, we're not changing anything.
Right.
If we would have
That's
set a
true.
fee
That's
and then
true.
changed it, when it made a
Correct.
change, we haven't even set the fee.
Correct.
So
Well, okay,
we're clarifying.
Yeah, the
Yes.
question I would have would be then, if, let's say it goes, the wording is as the ordinance review committee proposed, it gets voted on, does the lawyer feel that then the fee can be added in? I'm just saying, is
Right.
there gonna be an issue if it goes through in November, passes, and then somebody says, well, wait a minute,
Yeah.
what we voted on, there was no fee in there, and is that gonna be an issue? If there is an issue, time to do it, to identify it would be now rather than after it gets voted in. That's all I'm saying. If
Yeah,
there's-
yeah, oh, it definitely is going to be. It will definitely, that fee will be added before it goes to vote.
Well, doesn't
The
the
only
select,
question is, are we gonna add it or is the board gonna add it?
Okay, but it should be added before then, hopefully before the public hearings are held.
Yes,
Okay.
agreed. And that's what I was saying, Monday, the select board is supposed to be talking
Thank
about
you.
that fee more.
Hopefully they just put,
Doesn't this floodplain ordinance have to be in place by the 1st of July? So-
July 17th is
All
the
right.
date, and that's why they're talking about it, because they have to do the
Okay,
emergency
but as
ordinance.
far as ours, that doesn't come, our, effectiveness on this is November. So the select board has to do an emergency
Mhm.
implication of this,
Mhm.
and that fee should be filled in, I would
It will
think.
be.
Well,
When they do that.
It should say to be set by the select board. It shouldn't be $15 or $10. It should be to be set. I
Set
think
by the
most
select
of our ordinances don't
Say
have a
that.
number.
Yeah, they do, for sure. Anybody else? No? Okay, believe it or not, we made it through, and we got public comment. Did you have something you wanted to?
Did.
Okay.
I may be at the wrong place and wrong time.
Okay,
Last month I stopped in, when I stopped in, there was no CEO.
yes,
The secretary said there that I should come here. And this is what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
It's an ordinance situation where we're running into the road that I live on.
okay.
So I don't know if this is the proper,
Are you looking for advice, or are you looking to have something resolved?
changed.
not changed.
Okay.
We have a situation on the road with land usage.
Can we ask what road?
Sure, Duke Lane.
Okay,
Lane.
Duke Lane off of Walker Road.
Okay.
uh-huh,
So we have land use issues with someone who has recently moved in there, running a business. We have a letter signed by the residents, pointing out some of the ordinances that are in question here. I didn't make enough copies, but if you like, I can submit.
There's really nothing we can do for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, yeah, that's,
so this kind of dovetails into the overburden of,
Yes.
it does, and
Sorry.
unfortunately, I wish I had known, I wish she had, I actually, just to be clear, I've, this has been happening a few times in the past couple of weeks because they're so overwhelmed over there. You're not the only one
glad
that
to
she
hear we finally
directed.
have one, actually.
What's that?
Glad to hear we finally have one.
Yes, we do. She was just appointed last week. So, I had, about 3 or 4 days ago, somebody else was pointed in our direction. I wish she had told you to email me like that person did, because I would have told you, you don't have to waste your time and come. We're just an advisory
It's been
committee.
enlightening.
So we really can't help with anything. Another person, same thing, they were looking for advice and they wanted to be able to sell their piece of land is half residential, half general purpose, and they wanted to be able to sell it as 2 residential lots. But we don't have that authority. We can't do any of that.
Well, that's fine.
But
So we
Rebecca should be able to help you now.
Yes. See,
Duke Lane is a private road, right?
Excuse me?
It's a private road, Duke Lane? Yeah, probably the CEO isn't gonna be able to help you either.
So the ordinances are valid?
well,
Well,
On private road?
are you in general purpose area?
Yes, sir. Everybody basically on this road.
What are they, running a business?
C6.
Are they running-
Excavation business, basically. Junkyard excavation business.
Is it a pit?
They're turning it into one.
Well, then he's gotta go to the planning board.
Well, actually, if there's a violation, they go to code enforcement.
Yeah.
Okay, if it's,
That's what he's
yeah,
got.
So that's
He's
why
got
you
a
just follow-
violation.
yes,
right.
if they're in there excavating and they don't have a permit, yes, CEO's the place to go.
Fair enough.
Yes, definitely.
That's what, I don't know, again, I apologize, but.
No, we
We
apologize.
apologize.
Yes, I just go to the
Yeah, I'm
meeting
sorry that you
and-
came and had to sit through that.
Well, no,
Yeah, I
I think we have a code enforcement officer,
Yeah,
that
yes.
is where I started,
Yes,
to
for
find
sure,
out we didn't have it, and
for sure.
then it was.
And if it's not something that she thinks, where she thinks both of these gentlemen are on planning board, and if she thinks you need to go there, then you'll have to go see them.
If it's a home occupation, she can give them a permit.
Well, no, it's someone
No, if it's a
else
pit,
who's
they-
doing something that they're not supposed to
Right,
be.
land use,
in-
outside of
Right, in the
GP
general
use.
purpose zone.
Right, right, exactly. All right,
That's all.
I do wish you the best of luck though.
No, I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you
If
for
anyone
coming,
there, we would
for
have
sure.
had a process.
If you had such a good time, these are taped, you can watch it anytime from home.
I'll look at the next meeting.
Hey, we've got an opening on the committee if you'd like to join.
I'll have to look at it.
We're all just
Yeah, for
volunteers.
sure.
Learn, a lot of us were going, these guys have been here, know it all. I'm new,
No,
so I'm
as-
learning a
As a
lot.
builder, as a
I
licensed
ask a lot of
builder out of
questions.
Mass, in that whole thing about the extending from 30 days, down there, they have to do the stretch in the energy code down there, and they literally need that kind of time. Once
Absolutely.
architects are involved, engineers
Absolutely.
for all those new codes, those
Yes.
stretch codes, she'll,
Yeah.
and if you want to keep a good code enforcement officer.
Absolutely.
people agree to
You
it.
do sound like you'd be a good addition to our committee.
I have my own business to run, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Have a good night. Joe, did
Thank
you
you.
have anything? You're good? Okay, so I'm looking for a motion.
Oh, wait, can I make-
And-
Oh, Don, you want something?
At one time, was there a suggestion that,
Oh, no, I'll have code enforcement.
the Southern Maine take a look at our whole ordinance
What she's getting.
and maybe try to give an overview or some, because right now, I mean, obviously the
I know
ORC
that,
is
you
trying
know
to
that.
fix known issues, right? But I thought at one time, was a thought, take a look, like a holistic look at the whole ordinance and say, okay, and, like, for example, land use tables are in tabular form, but then there's definitions, and sometimes there's some areas, like we need both of those. And then that was one of the items that Brenda talked about, why do we have both? Why do we put those together? But, but there's a lot of those things, and every town has its own set of ordinances, and every town's a little bit different. Is there some way we could lie, cheat, steal, and plagiarize, maybe, and make a leap forward on this thing rather than trying to, like we did in the past, go through step by step and look at each of the wordings and try to take the existing one and improve it. So I mean, maybe that's the best approach, but, is the other approach dead?
My problem with that, Don, is if I want to live in Arundel, I'll move to Arundel.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, I think we should tailor it to the residents of Arundel.
well, I thought the idea was that maybe Southern Maine could take a look at our ordinance as it exists and then make some,
They did Arundel. Have you looked at them?
no, is it bad?
Have at it.
Is it complicated?
It's just,
Okay. Well, anyway,
it's not friendly.
I'm just asking a question, whether that's a dead issue.
Well, I think that's, to answer your question pointedly, no, I do not believe that's a dead issue. I believe 100% that Lee J. Feldman is on board to do this.
I thought Lee J left, didn't he?
He's,
I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
He is leaving,
He is?
yeah. And I was talking to Southern Maine today, he'll be there for the duration of next week, and then he's not with another position.
I thought he was something.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
just Michaela,
Yeah.
who was at our last comprehensive plan
Right.
meeting, is on board.
That's right.
She's gonna start looking at comprehensive plan, from Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission. She's gonna start there and basically just give suggestions, as you know, in our last, which I should tell everybody here, the last comprehensive plan committee, Michaela was there. And she basically took all of our documents, our comprehensive plan and our zoning ordinance back, and they're just kind of looking at everything. We were discussing LD 1976, which is a law that was in the pipe, that makes towns change their comprehensive plan.
Right.
So the decision in comprehensive plan was, do we follow the old rule? Or are we gonna be more forward thinking and look at 1976 and try to make our comprehensive plan conform to that, so that by the time we're done, we don't have to redo it? Then Janet Mills vetoed everything. So LD 1976 is not a thing now. So there's probably, that,
Till next year.
correct me if I'm wrong, but that's probably going to mean that we're gonna do the comprehensive plan, and 1976 is gonna come back in a different form, and it's gonna pass, and we're gonna have to redo the comprehensive plan. But what that led me to was that we have to keep moving forward with the comprehensive plan, whether it's by an old rule or whatever, get it done so that we can fix the zoning ordinance. There's a lot in this ordinance that needs to change. There's a lot that can stay too, but I really do think that it definitely needs a good once over. But that has to start with page 1, which is our map. And that's currently what we really are trying to get to, I feel anyway, with comprehensive plan is, are we gonna change any of are we gonna put any kind of transitional districts in? Like our village, for instance, is, it's a residential, it's residential there. There ain't a damn 3-acre lot there. So do we have a village district where, because that's all of our history is in our village. It's the only part of our town that didn't burn. All of our history is in that village.
90% of our history is set right there in that church.
Yes, so,
That's being repurposed.
Yeah.
it's kind of like the trickle down effect, if we start with comprehensive plan, get it all fixed up, get the map, whether it changes or not, don't know, don't care. But we really can't move on in our zoning ordinance until we know that this is gonna change. If it takes us a couple of years to get comp done, which it's not,
Oh, God.
comp is gonna be really quick, I feel. As long as we know that we're going by one rule or the other, we get comp done, then we can start. Because there's no sense, if it were to come to pass that Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission says, you know what, guys, I think you should put in some of these transitional districts, that's gonna change our map, which changes land use or adds to land use. However that comes to be, I don't know. That's why we're looking for Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission to do that. And once she's done with comprehensive plan, that's when we go back and start. Oh, all right, here's our new map. Now let's go in order, starting at page 1 and so on and so forth.
Do you think there's gonna be enough funding to continue that process with
Yes.
Southern Maine?
Yes, we have, we actually came back, the Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission said it's gonna be this, and it's gonna be a 3-step kind of phase, because obviously they can't do comprehensive plan first. All of it all at once, so they'll do comp plan first, and then they'll just kind of take a look at the zoning ordinance and give their recommendations. Whether we take them or not, it doesn't matter. But we'll have that information to move forward and make good decisions so that we don't have to start back at page 1 again if something changed.
Thanks for explaining that, because I knew parts of that, but you've got it all.
Yes, sequentially. This is how Lee J suggested that it goes.
That's logical.
Yes, it is logical. So, yes,
Just a question, informational.
yes.
Who develops this map? Is it the select, planning board,
crayon
select board? Who
Uh,
decides what,
That's been our map
right?
forever.
Okay,
Yes.
so it hasn't been changed, so no one's
It
ever
hasn't.
signed
No, that's
It
not
hasn't.
actually true. It has
I think
changed
the last
over the
one
time.
was the
It's
Why
changed
is it
by
like
people recommending it, and then it has to go to the town for a vote.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's why
Yeah.
it.
The
my
residential
property, the
zone
next
was
property
added,
on the
I don't know, how
residential
long
zone.
ago was the
Why did they
residential
stop
zone
it?
added?
That one
Right.
says the last revision is up
Exactly,
February sixth,
exactly.
2014.
2014, that's when they added the
Okay,
residential
so
zone.
some town resident brought forward.
No, it was probably a group of people that decided and they said, okay,
Wow.
here's the recommendation.
Oh,
And
okay.
there was an ordinance, I don't think there was an ordinance review committee back then, but somebody came up with the idea. It was put in the form of an article on the town warrant and it was voted on.
I think that was the commercial residential.
Commercial residential, yeah.
Commercial zone went from commercial
Yeah.
to commercial residential because some of the residents in the commercial zone didn't like the restriction with legitimate reasons.
Yeah, and every time you want to change that map, you stir up a hornet's nest.
Well, it's, again,
How
just
come?
looking at it.
How
being
come?
down,
Because somebody who lives, well, the same reason with the commercial residential zone. Because people who are living there, for instance, okay, say you want to convert this section of the general purpose zone into residential. Well, there's a bunch of people in there that have businesses already in there. And so they're going to complain about it. Now you can say, oh, well, you're going to be grandfathered, but that's not all what happens. And this is what happened over here on Upbrook. When they wanted to propose to make that residential, some farmers came in and said, wait a minute, you're going to screw up our farmland. So that went in the toilet. So when you start trying to change that map, you stir up a hornet's nest. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I'm not against doing it.
Correct.
But I'm saying is,
It's a lot of work.
it's a lot of work,
Absolutely,
and it's a lot
absolutely.
of politics that go on.
Absolutely, there is.
And the study has to be made because, okay, you're going to
That's
take
exactly
this, how
right.
many businesses are in this area? How many?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what comprehensive plan is working on.
Well, but.
The data. The
Yeah.
data, we need the comprehensive data, that the data that supports our comprehensive plan is the earliest, the latest date was 2014.
Yeah.
Most of it was 2009, 2010,
Based on the
there's even some in 2004. So that's the kind of demographic data that we need to get from the state. We just got that
Oh,
in
you did get it,
comprehensive
because
plan.
I know it was like a
Yes.
couple meetings ago, you were making
Absolutely.
that was coming in.
We just got it, and now SMPDC takes that data, and Don's word, smooths the data.
Yeah, they.
And that tells us which way we need to go and what we need to do, kind of thing. So that was really the purpose of not starting at page 1 of the zoning ordinance, to let comprehensive plan get a little bit ahead and figure this stuff out.
So my next question, which you may
Yes.
not even be able to answer.
Sure,
How long does it usually take for SM
SMPDC.
to review something like that? Or do something like that?
We're actually waiting on some recommendations from her. She said she would have some recommendations for our next meeting, which is, we're
So it's
always the
It's not
one,
gonna be,
right? It's
right
moving
now, the
forward.
code being so backed up that you're not
Exactly.
gonna see it for 6 months.
Exactly, yeah, it's not stagnating for sure. We're moving forward,
Good.
so.
That's valuable information.
Our next meeting gonna be the 24th.
Our next meeting for ordinance review is the 6th, June 6th.
We're gonna do the 6th.
Yeah, and just to let you know, I'm having surgery on the 5th, so I won't be here on the
You
6th.
you won't be here on the 6th, no, okay.
That's also high school graduation.
Oh,
Not a good time.
so that's probably not gonna work. So do
Why?
we
We'll
want
have
to,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with Dawn.
okay, so perhaps we can, if the 6th is our next meeting, do we want to just take it to the 3rd Thursday in June, which is the 20th?
The 6th.
June 20th.
You mean just cancel the 6th?
Yeah. Do away with our 6th meeting.
That's
and
fine
go
with
to
me.
the
Well, we
20th.
haven't really got in much to go over. have
We haven't right now, and by then, comprehensive plan might have some more stuff, some
Yeah.
data and stuff, and I could probably bring some of that data in and share
Yeah.
it with everybody too. So, everybody's good with the 20th?
20.
All
right. June 20th. All right, I'm looking for a motion.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second?
Second,
Nobody wants.
All
to
in
go?
favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Who seconded it?
Dave.
Dave.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that.
I already, don't have a preference. If that happens, if that comes to pass, I'd be okay with it, but, okay, either way.
Get a lot of calls. Changes.
Yeah.
No, well, they ain't come.
Something will continue forever.
Absolutely.
I have.
Same as the code,
We got jobs here.
same as the code officer.
I'm a sucker for
Okay.
that.
There's this here.
Good night, Joe.
Oh, serious.
Yeah, you're replacing the Joel.
Wow.
Really serious.
Want me to carry that stuff for you? You sure? I don't mind, I'm going that way.
Because a lot of areas.
Are you back for good, Dave?
We're lucky to get it. I mean, not lucky, but.
I'm back, I'm back until I can come up. Until December. I'm back until December.
Now, Julie is staying,
I just go to something else
I'm
off
not saying
the
this,
line.
you know, Joy's making.
Julie is staying in the office?
Yes, she's still part-time, yeah.
Emergency services.
So Dave, if you don't mind me asking, what's in Florida where you may have to go back and forth?
I built it.
Oh, down there?